Hello, welcome again to Fair Tax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Molero.
And we are the Fair Tax guys, dedicated to the proposition that every candidate running for Congress in this next election cycle should sign one of these little goodies. This is the Fair Tax Candidate Pledge. And we're going to see a pretty good story revolving about that a little bit later on.
Yep.
But we're finally back on kind of a regular recording schedule. You're back from your trip. I'm back from my trip.
Yep.
So we'll be recording a bit closer to the time these things will actually air.
Yep.
And one of the things we always do
yes.
keep a look at congress.gov so you don't have to. And in spite of all the stuff that's been going on in the Congress for the past week or so, they have now gotten up to 1,371. That's the number of hits that you get if you go to congress.gov and you type in the search string Internal Revenue Code. They got a bunch of them in which the Internal Revenue Code is one of several different laws that they're trying to amend regarding some provisions with health insurance. Keyboard there is they're still trying to use the tax code to mess with your health insurance, which they shouldn't do.
Yeah. And while Bob's reviewing those, I've got a congressional calendar here for last year and for this year. They've had 14 days in session this year. They had 130, so that's 144 days in session. You take that 1,371, they've dropped down a little bit, Bob.
Oh, okay.
Instead of 10 or 11 per day, it's down to 9.5 proposals to change the tax code each day they're in session.
Well, now that all this impeachment is hopefully over with, maybe they'll get back to business as usual.
Oh, yeah. They'll be back up to 10 or 11 proposals per day.
Yeah.
They have an unquenchable thirst to change our tax code.
They do.
What else you got there?
Including H.R. 5792 to amend the Internal Revenue Code to repeal the restrictions on which designated beneficiaries may receive, over the life of the beneficiary, the required distributions from a defined contribution plan. Now, if you can decipher that, you'll know what your Congress critters are up to. Another one, H.R. 5782, to amend the Internal Revenue Code to provide for a credit against tax for qualified special law enforcement officers. Now, you look at something like that. All right, let's give our law enforcement officers a break.
Yeah.
But you carry that thinking a little bit farther and says, wait a minute. If you're going to give them a break, somebody else has to make up the difference.
Sure. And, and not only that, what about firefighters? They deserve a break, too.
Yeah, I know. Well, Steve Hayes has got a chairman's report coming up shortly about that very thing.
Oh.
How some people get breaks and others don't, and it's just not fair, and we need to get rid of the entire income tax system and replace it with a fair tax.
That's the only thing that's fair for everybody, not just certain interest groups.
Okay. Even though don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying law enforcement officers don't deserve a break, but the thing is, if you're going to start picking out certain people and certain groups of people to give breaks to, just realize that the rest of the folks who are not getting that break are having to make up the difference, and a lot of times that's us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, you've got a grassroots corner you want to hit on. 8 pages worth. Let's see you do it in 30 seconds. Go.
Okay. Grassroots Corner is by Jim Bennett. You can get it every week in the Fair Tax Friday email that comes out. If you're not getting it, go to fairtax.org and sign up, and they never share your information or sell your information, so you won't get spam because you signed up at fairtax.org. Okay, this one, why citizenship-based taxation needs to be abolished, and it's an article by Paul Malkovich, who was a U.S. citizen living overseas. And like Bob said, it's 8 pages long, so I'm going to touch on a few salient points here. All right. In fact, it's so long that Jim did an executive summary. All right. As you read through Paul Malkovich's article describing how unfairly Americans abroad are treated by our tax code, keep in mind how unnecessary all this nonsense would be if we only had the fair tax.
Yes.
All right. So,
Indeed.
anyways. Paul makes quite a case here on why this taxation, what it is, the IRS, you have people, U.S. citizens, living and working abroad, all right? They're not earning money here in the country. They're earning money in another country, and the IRS wants a piece of the action.
Still wants a piece of the action.
Yep, every time.
Big surprise.
I'm just going to do this. The accounting costs of filing a basic offshore income tax, even when no tax is owed, can run into the thousands of dollars. Think of that. right? And the IRS does a poor job of informing non-residents of their tax obligations. So what happens, sometimes, they get a job overseas, they start working, they don't realize that they still owe taxes to Uncle Sam, to the IRS, and they get in trouble, and the IRS puts a claim on them as being a tax fraud. They go to open a savings account in a country over there. Oh, sorry, the IRS has labeled you a tax fraud. So that's a terrible situation. Anyways, it's quite an article. Again, if you you can get it in your Fair Tax Friday. Also, Jim, like I said, Jim does a weekly grassroots corner. So if you have something of information, pertinent information for Jim about a grassroots event going on, you manned a booth someplace or whatever, jim.bennett@fairtax.org. Make sure you contact jim.bennett@fairtax.org and give him your grassroots information. He's always thankful for it.
Excellent. That was very good.
Yeah.
Now,
considering how long it was.
If you've been listening to the past several episodes of Fair Tax Power Radio, we've been talking about making an effective case for the fair tax when you're talking to congressional candidates, whether they be incumbents or whether they be challengers. There's still a lot of accessibility out there that people are going to be getting that they don't normally get only during the election cycle.
Yeah.
And as the election cycle spins up, there will be more and more opportunities to speak to candidates for elected office, especially the House and the Senate, and then at the U.S. level, the national level. Although it's still a good idea to fill in your local and state office holders on the fair tax as well,
because some of those folks will end up in Congress. A lot of time
they'll end up there as well.
Mm-hmm.
But and again, we've said several times that we don't want to make this program Florida centric, but we're here in Florida, so that's the organization that Ron and I work with a lot. We see a lot of what's going on in Florida, and we would like to encourage other volunteers in other parts of the country that if they can do something similar to what you're about to see, take the video, send it to us. We'll certainly put it on the air. We want to instruct and inspire as many fair tax volunteers as we can. But if you'd like to see how to talk to a congressional candidate, you and Randy Fisher spoke with Gavin Rollins, who is one of, I think there was probably a dozen or so more on both sides of the aisle now vying to take over Florida's 3rd congressional district, from which Ted Yoho is retiring.
Right.
And so you were there, you did the video with him. Go ahead and set this up a little bit.
Yep. There are a total of 7 Republicans running for the District 3 Congress, congressional
as we record
seat.
This.
And as far as I know right now, and I think there's 2 or 3 Democrats are running for the seat also. Anyways, we're lucky enough to get a hold. Randy has been doing great job on this. He's contacting these people. He's keeping after them. They are very busy. Running for office is not for wimps. All right, it's hard work, and you have to put in long hours. But he was successful in getting a hold of the young man, Gavin Rollins, and we set up a time for us to meet. We went to Gainesville, and these two both graduated from the law school in Gainesville at the University of Florida. So we went, to some place that they knew about, and we set it up. And you're going to see this video. After the video, we're going to review what we saw, because it serves as a lesson or as pointers to other volunteers on how to go about this. You don't have to do everything, and maybe it won't be as elaborate as we did, but still, this video is instructive. So let's take a look at the time. It's about 10 minutes, the time that Randy and I had with Gavin Rollins, and then we'll come back here and we'll talk about it. So roll them.
Great. It's January 20th, 2020, and on this Martin Luther King Day, we are happy to be here at the University of Florida Levin College of Law. And with me,
I'm a proud Gator, so it's an honor to be back at my alma mater. So
2 out of 3 Gators, not bad. My name's Randy Fisher. I'm on the board of directors for the Americans for Fair Taxation, which is the national organization. I'm also on the board of directors for the Florida Fair Tax Education Association. With me is Ron Malero.
Hi. Yep, I'm Ron Malera. I'm president of the Florida Fair Tax Educational Association, which I have to say is a 501c3. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, and we don't promote or endorse any candidate. But when somebody shows the wisdom to get on board with the fair tax, we have to make note of that, and that's important. So
Absolutely.
I want to thank Gavin Rollins for.
I'm Gavin Rollins. I'm a candidate for the 3rd Congressional District in Florida. It's Gainesville, Ocala, Orange Park, Palatka, 6 counties, all of Putnam County, all of most of Marion County, all of Alachua County, Clay County, Bradford, and Union counties.
And tell us a little bit about yourself,
Sure.
Gavin, and how you happen to be here and be in the race for the district.
So I think a lot of conservative Americans, just Americans in general, have grown concerned about attacks on the foundations of our country. I believe that they're under assault, not only from communists, China and other countries abroad, but also sadly from a socialist bent moving within. And that threat from within is why I'm running for Congress. I've served overseas. I actually had the honor of fighting under President Trump as commander-in-chief and fighting terrorism in East Africa as an intelligence officer, supporting those operations and defending U.S. embassies. I'm also a history teacher, so I get to be in the classroom teaching students about the foundations of our great republic, the 3 branches of government, and how the Bill of Rights holds back government, and just the foundations of our great country. And then also I serve on the Clay County Commission, where I fought for local conservative values, stood up for the Second Amendment, led efforts to term limit politicians, and were focused on cost-saving, tax-saving innovations at the local level. And so I'm excited about the opportunity to possibly serve at the national level and take on some issues like taxes and trying to get rid of the IRS and others, as we'll talk about. So,
Well, H.R. 25, which is the Fair Tax Act, was first filed in Congress in 1999, and I'm sure that was a bit before you were involved in national or statewide politics. But
bit.
tell us how you became aware of the fair tax and what it is that caught your attention.
So I used to mow lawns. My dad had a lawn business growing up, and I would mow lawns, and we'd be riding back and forth, and we would listen to the Neil Bort show. He was a conservative commentator back in the day, and he would talk about the fair tax, and I think the original author, Congressman Linder, would come on and talk about it. And that was in the formation of starting to form a political philosophy growing up, and I thought, this makes sense. Why do we have such a complicated tax code? And so from there, I did some research, and in general, I'm for simplifying government, and specifically at the federal level. It's too big, too complicated, too intrusive.
Great. Ron, why don't you ask Gavin the next question? And since we're both actually in the 3rd district, I'm going to refer to you by your first name.
Sure,
if that's
absolutely.
all right.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious. Everybody has a favorite part or a favorite complaint of the current income tax, and maybe a favorite feature of the fair tax. Do you have 1 or 2 issues that attracted you to the fair tax?
Well, one thing is getting rid of the IRS. The IRS it seems like there to make people's lives miserable, and to try to trip you up if you don't comply in some perfect way, and this and that. And there's just hundreds of thousands of nuances to the tax code, and it's just too complicated. So getting rid of that complexity, I like the simplicity of the fair tax, getting rid of the IRS, and I also like that it takes away a lot of the control of the federal government and it returns it to the people. Yeah. And so I understand we have to have taxes to make government work and to defend our country and do some basic functions of government, but the way we do that should be mostly focused on freedom for Americans, and that's what I like about the fair tax. Is it's simple, it gets the job done, and it brings in the same amount of revenue as the current tax system without massive inefficiency from paperwork, an army of bureaucrats, accountants, and my brother's a tax accountant, so nothing against tax accountants, but I'm okay if he maybe had to find a different line of work down the road if we simplified the tax code.
No, I could tell you that, CPAs don't mind the fair tax because taxes is not the only thing they do.
Exactly.
There's a lot of other things.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So
Is there anything else about the fair tax that drew you strongly to convince you to support it?
If you look at what it incentivizes too, Ronald Reagan famously said, if it moves tax, the government's philosophy, it wasn't his philosophy, but if it moves, tax it. If it stops moving, subsidize it. And that's what government does. It tries to social engineer and play these games with the tax code.
Yeah.
What I like about the fair tax is it encourages you to work hard and be productive and save and make money. And then it's just the consumption, the purchasing of new items that's the way the tax system is. So it's set up in a way that incentivizes hard work and productivity.
Well,
I believe it's what the founding fathers had in mind. They couldn't do a consumption, a point of sale
Yeah.
tax back then, but we can now.
Absolutely. Technology's to the point where, yeah.
now,
So-
we've made available and will be presenting to every candidate in this race, because the fair tax is nonpartisan. We'll be presenting to both Republican candidates, all of them in the primary, and Democrat candidates, all of them in the primary, what we call a fair tax campaign pledge. Because it's very easy for folks to simply say, I like a fair tax, or I support a fair tax. But it's a little harder if they're not willing to put their name on the line
Yeah.
to hold them to that. So
This is the pledge right here. And basically it just says that I will not only be an advocate for the fair tax and talk about it and promote it, but if I have the honor of representing this district in Congress, that I will co-sponsor and vote for the Fair Tax Act. And we've talked a little bit about the fair tax, and if you want to know more about the nuances of it, fairtax.org, right, is the
Yep.
and they can kind of learn more
they-
about that.
People can also look up and watch Fair Tax Power Radio. It's on the Fair Tax Facebook page, and it's on YouTube and several other places.
Well, should I go ahead and sign?
Yep,
Yes, sir.
Please do.
Okay. I, Gavin Rollins, do solemnly pledge as a candidate for the office of Representative for Congressional District 3 that I will actively, visibly, and fully support the fair tax, and when elected, I will immediately co-sponsor and vote for the Fair Tax Act, and the purpose of which, and it talks about that, and candidate signature and date, 21st?
20th.
20th?
Yes, sir.
20th of January.
20th, yep.
Very fitting that it's on Martin Luther
2020.
King's
Yeah.
Memorial Day. He was a freedom fighter. He was
Absolutely.
also held up for audit by a vicious Internal Revenue Service put upon him politically to politically benefit others.
Yep.
Now, there's a little card in the front of my notebook, my University of Florida Gator notebook, right there in the
Oh,
card
yeah,
holder.
right here.
We're going to make sure you have a pack of these. Congressman Ted Yoho, who was,
Fair tax
and that's actually the wrong card.
oh, okay.
The front of the card is the card that you're going to get. That's how I do my business cards. The front of the card has a prebate, or the back of the card has a prebate schedule on it, and the front of the card. But Congressman Ted Yoho, who's a fair tax co-sponsor for 8 years,
I have some.
who is
Yeah,
retiring
perfect.
from the
Oh, nice. Yeah. Awesome.
from the district, Florida District 3, kept a pack of these with him, and he also had a little lapel pin for fair tax.
Perfect.
And we'll make sure you get those. We're also going to be providing you with a pack of what we call prebate or palm cards.
Love it.
And these are little
Every
cards.
candidate knows what a palm card is, right?
Yes,
Or they
the
should.
palm card is a way of keeping track of the bullet points for a bill.
That's great. Love it. Yeah.
And we also have research available anytime anyone happens to throw a question at you. As an educational association, the Florida Fair Tax Education Association is fully prepared to respond with research.
Perfect. Well, I'm excited, and thank you guys for doing this, and I'm looking forward to it, because this isn't just about money, it's about control, and the fair tax returns not only money to the citizen, but also freedom and control of their own lives to make their own decisions, and that's why I'm a big fan of it. So
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very much.
Yes, absolutely.
Appreciate your support.
And we're back. Yes, good deal. This producer fed us that line. There's a lot of stuff in there. One of the things that you're going to have to learn is that if you're talking to a candidate, you cannot help but get some of the stump speech. But
Yeah.
you know, he's going to want to talk about various things other than the fair tax. So you kind of got to keep him on topic there,
Yep.
which y'all did pretty well.
But you got to give him a chance to introduce himself, him or herself.
Got to give them a chance to speak, or they won't talk to you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so even if your video is not 100% fair tax, there's a little other stuff thrown in. That's fine. Again, we would encourage folks that can get candidates to sign the fair tax pledge on camera, get the video, send it to us. We'll incorporate it into a future episode of Fair Tax Power Radio, no doubt about it.
Yeah. So, and you'll notice in the video that I identified myself as the president of Florida Fair Tax, and as such, we're a 501c3, and I made it very clear we don't promote or endorse any candidate, but when somebody is smart enough to endorse the fair tax, we have to recognize that effort.
We can't tell you to vote for whoever the candidate is, but we can tell you who the candidates are that are signing the pledge and who are supporting the fair tax, just kind of
And I think
from
after
there.
this show, we're going to get more.
I hope so. 'Cause that was Mr. Rollins seems like a pretty articulate fella that I might. Only trouble is I don't live in his district. I live in the other end of the county, so I'm in the other district.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the other things that you might add to your repertoire when you're talking to one of these candidates, all right, how did you become attracted to the fair tax? In other words, what was it? Was it something about the income tax and the IRS that just really turned you off? Was there some feature about the fair tax? So give them an opening to talk about how they were attracted to the fair tax to the point that they want to sign the pledge.
And that way you can separate the ones that just do it lip service from the ones who actually know about it.
That's right.
I mean, it was very obvious from watching that video that Gavin Rollins knows about the fair tax.
That's right. That's right. So, and that's very important. I mean, it's nice to have supporters in Congress of the fair tax, but we want true supporters.
Yeah,
all right.
Just being a co-sponsor is just the first step. That's not the total end that you're looking for. People can co-sponsor it and then never think about it again.
Yep.
So you want to make sure that the candidates that you approach and that you educate on the fair tax actually become fair tax advocates beyond being just of course, being a co-sponsor is practically just, step one.
Yeah.
But go beyond that, become an active fair tax supporter. And of course, if any other candidate wants to sign the pledge on camera, we'll put you on as well.
Absolutely. And we had the camera that we're using now, all right? You don't have to go out and buy a camera for this. Today's smartphones are so accomplished. They take really great videos. Well, we had the camera, but Randy also had his iPhone, and we recorded with both devices. His video came out great, So you can set it up. If you don't have a tripod, just try to get somebody to hold it steady. I mean, we don't want J.J. Abrams' action figure video here with vibrating. It's important to try to keep it still somehow.
Yeah, keep it watchable.
Yeah,
that drives you nuts when you're watching a video and it's bouncing all over the place.
But a video is really powerful.
It is.
Right? So you can ask them what one or two features of the fair tax that you're most happy about. Okay, get them to talk about it. Let the candidate make his or her case. All right. Again, you're not going to let them go on with a stump speech. This is about the fair tax. And some candidates will try to go on about other things that they care about. You have to keep it to the fair tax. That's all we want is their tax reform, the fair tax, whatever fits in that vein. Okay. So, and make sure, like we did, that you offer them some promo material, because it's important that they have, say, the prebate cards and I forgot to put my prebate cards in my pocket. I'm so unprepared today.
Oh, 15-yard penalty.
Yeah, I know. And the palm cards, that's very important. If you need any of this stuff, you can go to the Fair Tax Logo Store, fairtaxlogostore.org, fairtaxlogostore.org. If you want a copy of any of the materials, contact us at thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. All right, and we'll help you out with that.
You've got one more little piece of research there that we want to get into relative to candidates. With candidates that take a position favoring the fair tax, usually do pretty well.
They do.
And I noticed that you and Randy offered Mr. Rollins, some support as far as if he needs some more of the research on things, if he gets asked a question that he can't really know the answer to, we can provide some support for candidates who want to back the fair tax.
Yep.
But again, candidates that back the fair tax, we've hit on the Republican primary for Florida governor here several times, where the front runner became a 20-point loser because he kind of demagogued the fair tax.
Yeah,
that didn't work. But
no.
You've got something there that's pretty cool.
In 2010, Steve Curtis, who at the time was the state fair tax director in Ohio, and Danny Higgins and Marilyn Rickard, and we know Marilyn from, she invited us to share her booth at CPAC.
Oh, yes.
A couple of years ago. That was
fun.
good. All right. Well, Steve did an analysis of the 2010 elections. Again, this is a lengthy document. If you want a copy of this, contact us, thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. We'll send it to you. As far as I know, this is not on anybody's website right now. Not that I know of. I mean, maybe Steve has it on it. But I'm going to read the executive summary because the rest of it's kind of lengthy, and then a couple of salient points. All right. An analysis of the election results from 2010 congressional elections showed that a candidate's position on the fair tax has a substantive positive effect on the probability of their winning the election. While running against incumbents, which is very difficult, candidates who strongly supported the fair tax and defended that position in the election campaign were nearly 6 times more likely than other challengers who did not support the fair tax. Think about that. All right. While running against incumbents, candidates who simply promoted the fair tax but did not promote or defend it strongly during their campaigns were approximately 3 times more likely to win than other challengers. And overall, candidates who used the fair tax as an integral part of their campaign were able to erase the traditional advantages of incumbency. That's a big deal, all right? And enjoyed roughly the same level of success as the incumbents in 2010, all right? That's good information. All right, now, here's another. I tag these things so I can quickly go to the pages. Otherwise, I'd be looking all over. Of those races, the fair tax satisfied the criteria to be a serious issue in 30 races. Of those 30 races, 1 incumbent was a fair tax supporter, and 29 fair tax supporters were challengers. The incumbent won his race. Of the 29 races where the fair tax supporters were challengers, 18 won support. That's pretty good. I mean, that's way better than half, okay? And it's very difficult to beat an incumbent, okay? By way of comparison, there were 382 races where incumbents were challenged. Of those races, challengers won 55 of the races, all right? So fair tax, defending your position on the fair tax definitely has a positive effect. And finally, the success rate for challengers who supported and defended the fair tax in their races where the fair tax was an issue, they had an 84.6 point advantage.
Wow.
That's amazing.
It is.
I mean, that's amazing. So, yes, the fair tax is a winning issue. Again, if you would like to see this, if you would like a copy of this, unfortunately, we can't put PDFs on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
All right? But we can, if you email us, thefairtaxguys@gmail.com, would be more than happy to send you a copy of this.
And real quickly, if you would like to get a hard copy of the Fair Tax Candidates Pledge, like we saw Mr. Rollins sign,
oh yeah,
go to fairtax.org. There's a little banner across the top. Get involved. Put your cursor on that Get Involved. A little drop-down menu will pop up, and like the third one down is Fair Tax Candidate Pledge.
Yeah.
So under the Get Involved, go to the Fair Tax Candidate Pledge, pop that up, and you can get this in PDF form and print it.
Yep.
You got about a minute and a half to do your logo store.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's see.
All the stuff you forgot to put in your pocket, you're going to tell
Yes.
everybody about. I got you.
FairtaxLogoStore.org. You can get shirts with pockets now, all right? We didn't have pockets for the longest time, so I know that sounds like a very trivial issue, but I like it. And in your pocket, you can keep copies of the prebate card. See? Like this.
Oh, well, you magically found one. Good
Yeah.
deal.
Basic information about the fair tax on one side and the prebate schedule on the back side. We have ordered, right? We've ordered the new prebate cards for the 2020 spreadsheet here, and they should be in soon. I mean, anytime now. And so hopefully when you order them, we'll have the new ones. Although there's very little difference between the 2019 and the 2020, and the concept is the same.
Yeah.
So anyways,
So
these
get
are
some of those and hand them to your candidate. Make sure that they
take a
those.
package. Get a package of these things, like 50 or 100, and give them to,
They're
give
not
them
that
to the
expensive.
candidate.
You can get
And
them
they
private.
also, like these, all the candidates have their own palm cards. Well, it just so happens that we do too.
Yes.
Right? So these palm cards are great. They have a little more information than the small card, the business cards. All right, and there's websites and so forth on there. So you can get those at the Fair Tax Logo Store. You can get campaign buttons like this. As I've said before, my wife always keeps 2 of these on the strap of her purse. And if she runs into somebody who seems genuinely interested in the fair tax, she'll give them one. That way she'll still have another one on the purse. So and we have attracted some great volunteers with these things. So I strongly recommend you get those things. All right, they have different kinds of pens with fair tax information. They got, ones that are cheaper than these. And you can, what we do is when you go to a restaurant and you sign your check, first off, you leave one of these. Secondly, you can leave one of the fair tax pens with them too. Somebody's going to see it. And if you really want to get into it, all right, and you're of the type that wears earrings,
How dare you.
My wife will be wearing these when we go to an outdoor event, okay? And I'll put some pictures up there of her with those on. They even have, this is our favorite issue. All right, our favorite item in the Fair Tax Logo Store. This is a must if you're going to a town hall. All right, you spread one of these things out, they're going to know what you're endorsing. Okay, and they even have Fair Tax sticky notes. They have all kinds of stuff. They have glass tumblers. Take a look at the glass tumblers. They have shirts, hats, jackets. They have tote bags. I've mentioned this tote bag before. If I don't knock everything over, all right. These are very nice, and they're very inexpensive too.
All
They're
right.
very inexpensive. Okay. So, and the umbrellas. Yep, that's right. My wife is reminding me about the umbrellas. Take a look at this one. So, lots of stuff there. FairtaxLogoStore.org. FairtaxLogoStore.org. Peruse through the different pages and so forth. I'm sure you'll find something that attracts your attention that you want to purchase.
So
Yep.
that's going to wrap up this edition of Fair Tax Power Radio. Thank you again so much for watching and listening and sharing and what have you. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
The Fair Tax guys again reminding you that the fair tax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
You'll demand it.
The Fair Tax is a tax replacement plan where we take all the federal income taxes, including corporate, personal, gift, and estate taxes, and replace them with one national consumption tax on new purchases, above the poverty level only. This form of consumption tax comes with no exceptions and is progressive, not regressive. The poor are not paying more, and the rich are not paying less. What makes it progressive is that all Americans are untaxed up to the poverty level via the prebate, much like your standard tax deduction. The taxes are collected by retail businesses at state level, so the system is more accountable. The IRS is done away with, and you have control over your money and what the overall tax rate your household pays. The fair tax is revenue neutral, so the government receives the same amount of money as they do now, and it's fair because you decide what's fair, not them. To learn more, visit fairtax.org and be sure to like us on social media to help educate your friends and spread the word.